It's an NFL playoff game, but this is an NFL playoff game on Nickelodeon. And you can't have a game on Nickelodeon and not have slime, right? Of course not. When players in this game reach the end zone, our virtual slime cannons will explode in celebration. Now that's how you'll really know it's a touchdown. And for those of you that are new to the game, let's go over scoring. Touchdowns are worth 6 points.
We've talked a few times on Knickknacks about the intersection of Nickelodeon and sports, how the channel has attempted to integrate the topic into a children's network, starting with Reggie Jackson's World of Sports in 1981, which celebrated accomplishments in youth sports, but didn't touch on mainstream sports like the NFL or the MLB, limiting the appeal and making less athletic kids feel bad about themselves. There was Nickelodeon Sports Theater with Shaquille O'Neal, a series of sports-themed made-for-TV movies to inspire kids with the story of Jackie Robinson. There was that time that Nick had a spin-off channel that was supposedly about sports, but was actually just a bunch of game show reruns. There was an NFL Nicktoon once. Anyone remember Rush Zone? It was like a Power Rangers cartoon, but with football. For almost its entire 40-plus year run, Nickelodeon has had little confidence that sports could hold up on their own. Shows about sports had to be meaningfully transformative in a way, trying to find a unique angle for the channel's young demographic. The few times a sports show just had straightforward coverage, like Skate TV or the Sports Illustrated for Kids show, they're given very short runs on the channel. But then, just a few years ago, in 2021, Nickelodeon cracked the code. They found a way to put sports on Nickelodeon. And they did it by just airing sports.
For the first time ever, the NFL playoffs are coming to Nick. Get ready for football in a whole new way. Catch every play with even more action.
He's on fire.
Your favorite Nick characters.
Was that Lincoln Loud?
1, 2, 3, Nick.
And don't forget the slime.
He's in the slime zone.
Oh, honey.
Watch the wild card game in a wild new way.
Did you see that?
The NFL Wild Card Game, coming January 10th on Nickelodeon.
On January 10th, 2021, Nickelodeon broadcast their first NFL on Nickelodeon sorta simulcast, airing the Wild Cards game between the Chicago Bears and the New Orleans Saints, which saw the home team Saints whoop the Bears 21-9. Then right after, the Saints lost bad to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who would go on to win the Super Bowl, but that's not important here. What's important is that, holy crap, there was an entire football game airing on Nick. Of course, it wasn't just the game. They didn't simply broadcast the version that was airing on CBS. The Nickelodeon game had a ton of flourishes, with unique on-screen graphics, lots of references to Nickelodeon shows, cardboard cutouts of Nick characters in the stands, and digital slime cannons going off every time a player made a touchdown.
We're going to have to say when he scores a touchdown today, Breeze over the middle. It's Thomas! He dances his way into the end zone. New Orleans is on the board first.
There we go with the slime cannons. Hey, that is epic.
In the announcer's box, you had Nate Burleson, former wide receiver and current co-host of CBS Mornings, Noah Eagle, play-by-play broadcaster and son of Ian Eagle, and Gabrielle Nevea Green, cast member of the 2019 All That Revival. And it's here that we get what makes this broadcast special. The goal wasn't just to air the game as is, but to present a goofier version of the game while also making it accessible to young people who may not be into football, who may not yet know the rules. If I may be allowed to mix my sports metaphors, they knocked it out of the park.
So you'll see the rest with yellow flags. Coaches have a red flag. It's basically saying I don't agree with the call that was just made. It's kind of like you're playing tag with somebody and they said they were on base and you're like, no, let me throw the flag out because you were wrong and I was right.
Just as announcers, Burleson and Eagle have easy chemistry together. Impressive considering that the then 23-year-old Eagle was still very wet behind the ears at this point. Burleson does a lot of the actual game explanations here, and does a great job finding metaphors to ground the game in the likely real-life experiences of the youngsters watching.
It's kind of like getting your final grade in week 17, which is the last game of the year, and then the teacher coming to you and say, hey, listen, I know you had a C in the class, but I'm going to give you a chance to earn some extra credit. That's what the playoffs are, because you go into a season hoping you make the playoffs, but they're not guaranteed. So now Mitchell Trubisky has a chance to really raise his grade on his season.
Green is more of a minor presence in the announcer's box, offering the occasional cheer and wow, but that's fine. She's basically the audience surrogate, playing the role of the football newbie for Burleson and Eagle to explain things to. It's a great setup. Complementing it was whenever a penalty flag was thrown, the penalty was explained by a pre-recorded bit by Ian Armitage as young Sheldon, which isn't a Nickelodeon show, but whatever. And despite my opinions on young Sheldon, it does actually work here.
A false start. That's when an offensive player illegally moves after lining up for, but prior to, the snap. Like when my dad starts shoveling in dinner before mom says grace.
It's no secret that I'm not the biggest sports person in the world, and in the trilogy of American football, baseball, and basketball, football has always taken third place in terms of holding my attention. If I had something like this when I was a kid, a dedicated broadcast meant to entertain a younger audience and actually teach them the game as it was going on, I don't know, I might have gotten into it. As a creaky old adult, I was absolutely charmed by this broadcast, even if maybe they should have had a tape delay on the game.
That was money.
Appreciate it.
On his own.
All right. Let's
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, here it is, Nickelodeon's first F-bomb. NFL on Nickelodeon was made possible after the December 2019 merger of Viacom and CBS, allowing Nickelodeon to take advantage of CBS's pre-existing contracts with the NFL. And even if most agree that this was a pretty unremarkable game in a time when live sports were still being heavily affected by the pandemic, it ended up being huge for Nickelodeon, drawing in an audience of 2 million viewers, becoming the most watched Nick broadcast in 4 years. Sports were finally successful on Nick, and all they had to do was just air sports. NFL on Nickelodeon has aired 3 more times since, another wildcard game, a couple of Christmas games, and while there has been a bit of an audience drop-off compared to that first game, now that the initial novelty is worn off, these games are still doing better numbers than a lot of Nick shows right now. One of the best things to come out of this was to introduce Nate Burleson to the Nickelodeon family. The guy's a natural. He also hosted the pre-show, SpongeBob Sports Pants, which was basically a flashy half-hour countdown clip show of sports-related SpongeBob clips.
I gotta give SpongeBob the MVP for that performance. Most valuable pants.
Yes, Sweet Victory got the #1 spot. We all knew it would. Following the success of NFL on Nickelodeon, Burleson was given hosting duties for NFL Slime Time, an NFL recap show that premiered on September 15th, 2021.
All right, now I don't know if our Nickelodeon NFL insider Dylan Schefter likes fruit toppings on her pizza, but I know she likes getting the fresh scoop from some of the NFL's best. And I mean, it's in her blood. After the Cardinals' huge win on Sunday, she caught up with wide receiver Christian Kirk. Let's check it out.
Now nearing the end of its 3rd season, NFL Slime Time has become the longest running sports television show in Nick's history, by like, a lot. Get out of here, Reggie Jackson. So long, Shaq. Nate Burleson will be the one to usher in Nickelodeon's sports renaissance. All of which brings us to February 11th, 2024, which will see Nickelodeon air the frickin' Super Bowl. The first time the Super Bowl has simultaneously aired on multiple television channels since the very first one in 1967. This is a pretty big deal for the channel, and I hope it's implemented with the same amount of fun and care as that very first game. Regardless of my personal taste in sports and my opinion on American football and the harm it can do to its players, I think the NFL on Nickelodeon format is charming and inventive. They finally did it. They finally figured out sports on Nick. Maybe, someday, if I live to see Nick Nax get to 2021, we'll talk about it more in depth. Talk about whatever shape post-Super Bowl NFL on Nickelodeon ends up looking like. But for now, this was just a sample.